Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. So in this episode, we see the very welcome return of Gustavo and Eduardo from the legendary O Contato podcast. Based in Brazil, they're doing a phenomenal job, and since we last saw them where they gave us an amazing rundown of Operation Prato and the official Night of the Saucer that took place, their channel is growing immensely. They're publishing books and going from strength to strength, so it's great to see good friends having success. In this episode, they're back to have a deep chat. First of all, not just about UAP, but just about what life was like in Brazil. And that adds excellent context to the subject of today's talk, which was a public, real-life X-Files program, where the Brazilian Air Force would use UAP studies, a fully public, although that's quite debatable, study into the unknown, some incredible cases that I'd never heard of. For example, a craft landing and a Nordic lady coming out with a crystal decanter asking for water. We also discuss the now infamous Varginha case, and we managed to, between us, find out something very, very interesting about the Brazilian general that James Lacatsky mentioned in the Weaponized podcast. So I'm going to add timestamps because we are three good friends and we all love a good natter. So there's plenty of places where we're weaving in and out of the conversation. I don't expect you to dive through it all in one go, but I hope you really, really enjoy it, and I'll see you very soon. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, so Gustavo, Eduardo, it is an honor to have you back, my friends. It's been far too long. How are you both?
Yeah, we're great. Happy to be here once again, talking to you and our friends, and exercising my English, which is something that I never do.
Your English is great. You're far too sensitive about
Eduardo has a good English, but I just
that.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I mean, it's not really really good English, but I had time to practice it many years ago. I've studied for many years, and I had friends who spoke English, so it was kind of easier for me. I taught English for many years as well in schools and stuff, private students and so on. Um, and I read a lot of things in English as well, so that helped me. And I've tried to learn other languages. I studied 2.5 years of French, almost 2 years of German. I'm also fluent in Spanish. And when I was a teenager, I tried to learn Russian on my own.
Oh
True
my
story.
God.
Tom,
And last,
Eduardo is the winter soldier of O Contato Podcast. Every week we discover new things about him. Yeah,
Hopefully I don't get his trigger words right then during this
yes,
conversation.
that's
we never know. It already happened, but we don't know what was the word.
that's
But
a
it could,
recurring
yeah, it
that's
could
a
happen.
recurring joke in our podcast. I'm like the Manchurian candidate. Eventually, somebody's gonna say something that's gonna trigger the hidden agent or something, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
start doing things and hunting people down, kind of thing.
we are getting to our hundredth episode, and I think it was around the episode 80, 81. We discovered that actually his name is Claudio Eduardo, not Eduardo. And
Oh,
then, yeah,
Eduardo as
mystery
well.
it
thickens.
took
The
so it
mystery
took
gets deeper.
yeah, it took 80 episodes, so we never know. Anything he says, we say, okay, could be true.
Well, I'm going to look out the window, and if I see black helicopters, I know who to call us.
Yes,
Well,
especially because
actually he was attached to the USSR.
Oh,
uh,
oh.
yeah, there's a lot of theories. I thought he was gonna say that I was actually I had an internship with the Brazilian army, and when you
Yeah.
said the joke about the black helicopters, and I thought Gustavo was gonna say something about me having worked with military helicopters in the past, but no, that's not.
Yeah, it's true, but it's
Let's
true.
just keep it low.
You whistle blew that one all on your own. Yeah, that's good. Well, guys, everybody loved the last time that you were on. It was such a great show.
Yeah, we
Um,
paid everybody.
yeah, it was. You didn't. You paid them in content. It was amazing. Operation Prato. I was literally talking to two people today who I know don't watch many of my videos, and they were like, "Oh, that last one, Operation Prato. Yeah, it was really, really good." So it's amazing
Ooh,
how little news from your part of the world actually makes it onto
yeah.
this part of the internet. So I am so grateful to get you back. Before we launch into it, though, I want to hear about this book because I'm very excited.
Yeah, we released our first book. It's a book I've written, and we have now, how can I say, it's not a publishing house of ours, but a brand, O Contato Books. And this book is called, in Portuguese, Ruído Oficial, como a CIA manipulou a ufologia, but in English it could be something like Official Noise, how CIA manipulated ufology.
Love
And
it.
the goal of the book is not to prove that UFOs are real. The goal of the book is to show that despite if it's real or not, the CIA used it a lot to deny when it was convenient, to feed the myth, the legend when it was convenient, but every all the time keeping the topic in a gray area, gray, not the grays, but in the yeah, in this kind of this area where you don't know exactly what is truth or what it's not. A lot of disinformation, and the book's about that, and it's in Portuguese now, but we will translate it into English.
Yes, I
And
think
it's
that's
very
really good.
yeah, and it's a topic in the Brazilian literature about UFOs, UAPs, phenomena. There's many books about Brazilian cases. Uh, there are some foreigner books which were translated into Portuguese, but there's little too little about the CIA and this part of the topic. So I think it's something new in Brazil. And now, after we finished the crowdfunding, we reached 130% of the goal, and now I am starting to write a second book, which is basically a natural continuation of the first, because this first book I was not interested in proving that the phenomena is real or anything like that. I was just focusing on how the CIA worked. So I was dealing with documents all the time. It was all
Hmm.
based in documents. I finished the campaign of crowdfunding, and while it was going on, I was starting to read about a Brazilian program from the late 60s, early 70s, in the Air Force, in the Brazilian Air Force, which we have already done one episode in the podcast before. We already talked about this, but so it wasn't something new for us, but I was getting deeper, trying to establish connections and try to understand. Oh, okay, that's this name. Who is this guy? What was his past? Who he became is after this investigation. Why this investigation started? Why this investigation stopped? When we did the episode, we touched more the surface of this agency,
Hmm.
how it worked, and now with the research for this new book, we are getting a little deeper And just like the first book I wrote, which is about one theme, the CIA and ufology, but to talk about it, I had to talk about the history of ufology from the 20th century to 20th century to 21st century. The same thing will happen with this book. To talk about this project called Sioani,
Mhm.
I I am already understanding that I have to talk about the relationship of the Brazilian army and especially the Brazilian Air Force, but the Brazilian military with the phenomenon to get to this program. So if you can put on the slides,
I can. I hope. Let's
yeah, let's see.
let's try. Let's find out.
Eduardo, do you want to say something about the this introduction?
Yes, you've heard about, first of all, you've heard about his book from the author, okay? But that's an author talking about his own book. So maybe you don't believe him because he's trying to sell it. Well, then you should hear it from a reader, okay? And a buyer and a reader. It's magnificent. I mean it, at least compared to what we have
Thank
in
you.
Brazil. It is unique, truly unique, because like Gustavo said, it's not focusing on trying to convince you that UFOs are real and there is a conspiracy regarding the US government and some gray aliens and blah blah blah. No, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's not about the phenomenon. It's not about the UAPs, none of that. It's about how the American intelligence manipulated and benefited from the UFO frenzy from the late 40s on, and how many of the ideas that were ventilated to the public were actually cooked by the CIA in order to fulfill their own goals regarding intelligence and counterintelligence and manipulation of the public opinion in many ways. So it's brilliant. It's not about ufology. It's not
Mhm.
Yeah.
about history and military intelligence. It is absolutely beautiful. It's entirely based on documents. So there's this entire section of the book with documents released via FOIA, and they've been translated into Portuguese for this edition. Then when it comes out in English, they won't be translated, obviously. They'll be in the original form. But the book is beautiful. I mean, it is the most, graphically speaking, it is the most beautiful book, at least in the Brazilian market, about this subject. We have a partner, like Gustavo said. There is a publisher. His name is Leonardo Bussadori. He's one of the best publishers in Brazil. He has experiences in some of the greatest magazines and book publishing houses. And now we have the chance to work together. I've actually met the guy once because he lives in the same city that I do, which is
No way.
incredible given the size of this country. But anyway, my town is really weird. You should know that
Yeah.
my town is called Taubaté. It is like the source, the Brazilian source of memes. Most of the memes that circulate in Brazilian internet come from Taubaté.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
also
uh,
called
and it's
Narnia. It's also called Narnia.
it's like
Narnia.
Narnia or Russia. I don't know. It's people here are crazy, but well, I'm from here, so
Last time we
um
spoke, didn't you say there was a big UFO flap there?
Yeah, the
yes.
entire episode of the official night of the UFOs. Eduardo lives in the center of the region where it happened.
Yes. Yes, my town
I'm
is
starting to
right.
wonder about you, Eduardo. I want to see a birth certificate. I think he came down on a saucer at some point.
The most famous road in Brazil connects Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, and I live very close to it. So the city is right in the middle of the way between São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. So yes, the that official night happened over my town as well. I wasn't born yet, but it did.
Yeah,
Moving on
he
to,
wasn't born yet.
Wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
I've
you
heard about
can't
these
All
hybrids,
right. Okay.
you
these
can't
super clever
prove I was
hybrids.
alive at the time. If you pull up my birth certificate, it says 1992.
By
Okay, the
born, he
official
wasn't born.
documents.
He wasn't activated.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
well,
am really
moving on.
interested though. Before we do dive in, I'm really curious about something that I can't get out of my head is with the Varginha case, and I know this is dragging things off on a tangent, but how would the CIA, if it was, or the Air Force, just turn up and claim a crash site and disappear with it? Because we know they did from the witness accounts, and then James Lacatsky on the Weaponized podcast tried to incentivize the question and they didn't pick up on it, unfortunately. And he said the right question is why was there a Brazilian general there?
Mhm.
And when he was describing this craft that they'd got access to. But there's so much that confuses me about, going to another country and just going, yep, this is ours, as if it was some crashed F-22 or something. And so I don't know, maybe it's a question we can't answer now, but it's something
Yeah,
that I find.
there are many stories and parallel stories around the Virginia case. It is still uh, an open case in
Hmm.
Brazil. Uh, just like I think it's the equivalent of Roswell, where it's still has lots of questions.
Hmm.
What to every um, indication that we have about Virginia, every new information, uh, it the whole case is about testimonials.
Mm.
For example, the landing of American the United States Air Force airplane in Campinas Airport, big city in our state. Varginha, it's on Minas Gerais. It's another state. But during those days, there's the report of unidentified, unauthorized American United States Air Force landing in which is the biggest airport in Brazil right now. I think it's right, Eduardo. Viracopos.
One of the biggest airports,
Yeah.
Viracopos, today is used exclusively for cargo flights. Okay. I think there are some very few passenger flights coming in and out
Yeah.
of it, but it's very, very rare.
So it's not a small airport or a small airfield in the middle of nowhere. So Campinas is the second biggest city in the São Paulo states, almost 2 million people, and this airport is massive. And we have the account of air traffic controller talking about, and the Brazilian air traffic controllers, they are, Eduardo can help me with this, but they are attached to the Air Force, right? The Brazilian Air
Yes,
Force.
in Brazil, all air traffic control is conducted by the Air Force. They're all
Yeah.
Interesting.
military.
S-
And
s-
in some specific locations, you have other military forces like the Army. In my city, it's conducted by the Army, but they are all military, and the Air Force regulates and oversees everything.
So we have uh, around the Virginia case, we have many accounts, many stories, but we still have any documents like those American airplane landing in Campinas. We have the account of this air traffic controller, but we don't have any document to prove that it happened. But it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. But it's still open. And the Virginia case, is very unique because, as we will see during this show, talking about Sioani, that even the big cases in Brazil they have some documents released. The official nights of the UFOs, Operação Prato, Operation Plate. There are many, many, many documents about many cases in Brazil, but this case in specific, zero. There's nothing
Yeah.
released via the equivalent of FOIA in Brazil about this case. So
It's also
it stands out because of that. Also,
it's also important to notice that Varginha was investigated by the army, not the Air Force. And
yeah,
I'd like to say that we have three forces in Brazil, like the Army, Air Force, and the Navy, and we also see three different levels of secrecy. You have the Air Force, which discloses some kinds of documents every now and then. Every year, actually, they release some. Last year, they released, I think, 42 or 48 forms 33 forms that pilots, mostly civilian airliners, they feel when they see something weird in the sky. And but that's it. There's no document about an investigation being conducted about it or anything else, just the forms. So they say here are the papers. We do receive reports, and that's it. We don't do anything about them, but we keep track of these sightings, and that's it. Then you have the army, which never released anything about anything, but there's a lot of rumors about it, and especially regarding Virginia. And you got ex-military who were there in the operations that allegedly captured the beings and recovered debris from a strange object, this kind of thing. You got reports from them to UFO researchers in Brazil. Some of them are said to be caught on tape, but not yet to be released because they won't allow it because they fear for their lives and this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Navy, which is absolute silence about the official position, about the official release of documents and rumors. No one ever says a word about these kind of events in the Navy, ever. And that doesn't mean
in the Navy it is the closest, the most secret about this topic, right?
they we all know that they also have the best intelligence infrastructure. I think that's the oldest intelligence infrastructure in the Brazilian military. I think, I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
sure, but it definitely is the most developed. And I have friends in the military, especially in the army, and they have done trainings with them, and they can't say anything about it, but they are all very impressed. They know the standard army intel structure that most military sees, most military are trained on, and they are always amazed by what the Navy is capable of in terms of intelligence. So we know they are the most developed on that matter. And the rumors are never there. People never say anything about what they see on the seas or the airspace they control in some regions of the country, especially near the Amazon River, right in the heart of
yeah.
the Amazon. The Navy is there with their boats, conducting humanitarian operations with indigenous people, taking vaccines and sometimes helping schools. They take all the machinery, the electronic machinery for the elections every 2 years. So they have contact with them constantly. The
Yeah,
Navy in the middle of the Amazon. It's crazy to say,
there.
but the Amazon River is an amazing thing. So they are there as well.
So the Navy is the only part of the government who gets to some places in Brazil.
Interesting.
The Brazil has the biggest water reservoir in the world, and there are big rivers everywhere,
Mhm.
and those rivers are in charge of the navy. So it's not only
Mm.
on the shore, on the beaches, on the sea. The navy operates also inland because of the rivers.
especially in the most in the poorest regions of the country.
Yeah.
And we can say that the most you go south in Brazil, the more developed it gets, especially near São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. So if you go further, like in the Amazon, the state of Amazonas, or the state of Pará, which is very close to Amazonas and is also in the Amazon forest. Those states are among the poorest in the country. So they need this kind of infrastructure from the military. It's not rare to see the Navy or the Army conducting operations to deliver vaccines or food sometimes to people who live deep in the country. So they do have this kind of contact with the people, and
Or even building you have the army and the navy building roads and bridges in those
Mhm.
areas,
yes,
really
keeping
working in
schools.
infrastructure.
It's nice to see. We could do with that in this country. But that's very interesting though. Thanks for that. I think there's definitely more to come from that case. And I find it so interesting because it's such a huge case, and it must have been seen by so many people that I'm just hoping at some point something comes out. Just before we
I'm
dive
sorry,
in,
just to, may I
yeah,
interrupt you just very
of
briefly? I
course.
forgot to say one thing. There is a picture in U.S. Air Force C-17 landed
Yeah.
on Campinas, landed in Viracopos Airport in Campinas
Yes,
at
there's
the
this picture.
time of the Varginha case. There's a
Yeah.
Oh,
picture of that.
really?
We're gonna find it and send it to you. But people took that picture because it's a big plane from the United
Certainly
States, and no
is.
one has ever seen that. Everybody was curious, so they took some pictures of it, and it got out a few years ago because at the time there was no digital cameras. Uh, you know, it was the 90s. But yes, we got pictures of that plane, and no one really knows, even for the people who worked at the airport, no one really knows why the American military was there, uh, why they showed up out of nowhere with no previous warning, and it's a mystery for them.
Yeah, especially a C-17 because they you can transport an A-10 in one of those. Like they're
Yes,
a huge plane. And if
yes.
you were going to go and scoop up things, that's exactly what you would take. I think at the time, I don't think the Globemaster. I'm probably being too nerdy now, but yeah, the C-17 would be very interesting to see tune up as opposed to just a passenger jet full of soldiers or whatever. That's very interesting. So cool. So Sioani. Oh,
Yeah.
how do you want to do this, guys? Do you want me to
Uh,
show the
yeah.
presentation at the
Open
same time
this
or
presentation, the first slide.
with the power of screen share? Here we go. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, take it
And
away.
so here we have Sioani, is the unidentified aerial objects investigation system. It was the first official program, let's say, from the Brazilian government about the UFO topic, and it operated from 1969 to 1972. So it was around for 3 years. Um, Here on the right, we have the logo of Sioani, Quarta Zona Aérea. It means it was the fourth air command from the Air Force. And as you can see, Sioani, it's written with an S, right? but in this logo, it's written with a C. It's not a mistake. Sioani with a C is a department inside Sioani with S. The C
Oh,
means center, okay? Center of investigation. So it was the headquarters, the principal department of Sioani. All right. Can we go to the next slide, please, Tom? So here we have two officers from the Brazilian Air Force. And to talk about Sioani, we have to go back a few years ago. So Sioani started in 1969, but actually the story begins in 1954 with Colonel João Adil de Oliveira, this guy on the left. He was a colonel at the time in 54 in the Brazilian Air Force. And there were some strange activities in the Brazilian sky already, and the Air Force was studying it. So in 1954, the Air Force High Command ordered a presentation, a study about the UFO phenomena to Colonel João Adil. So he was in charge of putting up a presentation for the high command, for the generals, the high staff of the Brazilian Air Force. When you see this presentation of him from 1954, you understand that they were studying it before it, because he shows up and he has a big dossier with the information gathered at least from 1948. So you will going when you start to pull the string, you going back and back and back. One important thing to tell about this meeting, this congress, this conference, is that it was made. It was an idea of the Air Force from the High Command, but it wasn't classified. We had journalists and witnesses participating, watching this conference. They were allowed. Actually, they were invited because they were two journalists and two civilians which witnessed cases in 1952, and it was open. And these journalists, I think they didn't have to sign no NDAs because they wrote about it not so long after this conference. So the seed of the CEO of Sioani started in 1954 with this conference. And which is one thing that's interesting to see is that Colonel João Adil, after this conference, he began to study parapsychology, and he is well known in the parapsychology research in Brazil as an important name. I don't know if he was interested in this topic before, in parapsychology, before this conference. I don't know if it was this conference which started his interest in this subject, but what we know is that he was deeply involved in parapsychology research at least after 1954. So we had this conference, and they established that it was a serious matter, and it should be taken seriously. And after that, from 1954, they established the beginning of a protocol to how to work with this topic. Sioani happened. Sorry, Eduardo, you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quick reminder for our audience. for context, okay, Sioani began officially in 69, but this meeting was held in 64. And
50,
1964,
54. 54.
54. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So way back.
15
But
years before.
64 and 65 are two very important years for our history in the 20th century, because that's when the military regime began. So when we talk about Sioani, we need to understand that it was an initiative held by the military, um, to talk about UFOs, essentially, to the public, um, during a military dictatorship where everything was a secret, where you had to keep secrets about the people you would talk to at your university, at the place where you work, or with your neighbors, because you yourself was not you were not some sort of rebel or a communist dissident or whatever, but maybe your neighbors were, and you don't want them to think
Or
that you were
or your
related to
uncle.
them. Yeah, maybe someone you know is doing something the military won't like, and you don't want them thinking you are part of that thing. So it was it was a very tough time for most people. Years ago, there was this commission that was held by the federal government. We had a president here that was prosecuted. She was arrested. Well, now we had two presidents that were arrested by the military during the during the dictatorship. Our first female president was one of them. The current president was the other, and they held this sort of commission to dig up through secret files and find people who did those kind of things, who would harass, arrest, torture, and even kill people during that time. They held almost 400 people accountable for those crimes. There were many more that they couldn't really name, and the count for people that were missing or disappeared during that time due to political reasons with the regime is over 400. That's the official number, but some recent studies show that it's in the house of thousands. So many people really suffered with it. Until today, families are prosecuting the government and the armed forces, trying to get information about their loved ones who disappeared during the military regime. Months ago, there was a very famous Brazilian film that depicted some of it. It was nominated for the Oscars. I don't
I'm
remember
still
the
here.
title.
I'm
I'm
still
still here.
here.
Yeah, they literally translated it.
Yeah.
Eu ainda estou aqui. It was about one of those cases. There was this politician in Rio de Janeiro who who was killed by the military at the time, and they weren't involved in guerrillas or violent actions, which also happened on the other side. There were terrorist groups fighting the military as well, and they would conduct bombings and murders, kidnappings. They kidnapped a an American ambassador once. So yes, it was a violent time for a lot of people,
So it's
and this is
extremely strange that they would have all of that going on and then do something for the public just to kind of inform them
exactly.
on something which wasn't even, it's not like these things were flying overhead all the time and was causing a civil uproar. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Exactly. Exactly.
At,
That's my
at
point.
this,
That's my point.
Mm.
yeah, because even if you were a supporter of the regime, you wouldn't have anything to do with those guys. It was always a dangerous. We don't know what he could think about you, and maybe
Mm.
you will get arrested because he misunderstood something you said. But this was the moment, especially when Sioani was operating 1965 to 72. this was the most power. The military power in Brazil was at its peak in history. Never Brazil, the Brazilian military has had so much power as in this moment. You had military regimes before this dictatorship. The Brazilian Republic was a coup from the military in the monarchy. So the Brazilian Republic was founded by the military, but this was the apex, this was the peak of their power. So I think it's interesting that this investigation was was made possible also because there is no black budget. They are the budget. The military controls the budget, so you don't have to tell the Congress about how do you spend the government's money because you are the budget.
There's no Congress, essentially.
Yeah.
Technically, there was Congress, but yeah,
there's no oversight type thing of your budgets, and that's very interesting. That's a very good point.
And in this point, if you think as Brazilian Air Force or the military, you think with their heads at the time, we're used to when we talk about the military in the United States or Russia or these big powers from the Cold War, so they were afraid of the rival. So the United States were afraid of what the USSR could do, what they know, and the USSR, the same thing regarding the US. If you are a third world country in the time, you are afraid of both. You choose one, but you are afraid of both. So when those sightings started to happen in Brazil, we know that it's not us because we're our industry, Air Force industry, and the Army industry were very underdeveloped at the time. It couldn't be a secret project from us.
That's a brilliant point.
Yeah, it's not just like the United States saying, well, it's not us, so it has to be the Russians. Or the same, the USSR saying it's not us, so it has to be the Americans. For us, it could be both. So the Brazilian Air Force has this concern that our airspace is being invaded by something. We don't know if it's the United States, which were our ally. We were allies with the United States during the Cold War. We don't know if it's the Russians, which are our rivals, and especially the rivals of our ally, the rivals of our friend. So it doesn't matter. For us, was concerning. For the Brazilian Air Force, was concerning both scenarios. And in 1968, 14 years after this conference in 1954, in 1968, we had a big wave of sightings. It started in 68, basically in the same area where in 1986 we had the official night of UFOs. It was in the area of São Paulo State, Rio de Janeiro, Minas Gerais, Goiás, in the central area of Brazil, Paraná, little in the south. So we had a wave almost 20 years before. And this wave was very well, it got a lot of attention from the media at the time, which was basically a radio, TV, journal, and newspapers. So this topic was on the front page. And you find in the Sioani documents their clippings that the Sioani agents They created clippings of reports from journals, newspapers about those sightings, and they were so you see they were following it.
That's very
So the
interesting.
yeah
Were
so,
the I'm going to interrupt and be difficult.
no okay
Were the sightings in the later flap the same description as the sightings from the one in the 60s?
um
Or
not
is that a silly question?
not really because in this wave from the 60s we had lights in the sky just like in the official night in
Yep.
86. But during this wave in 68 there were which started in 68 there they were everywhere with every shapes, and but there are many cases of direct contact, of landings
Oh,
and
wow.
beings being seen and people interacting with creatures of non-human intelligence, let's say.
Hmm.
So it was more spread. The official night, it was
Yeah.
it had its peak in a night in 86, but it followed for a few months before. It started a few
Okay.
months before, but this wave in 68, it hadn't a specific peak. It started in 68 and continues until 1972.
Right.
And so it was the Air Force had felt the necessity to give an official position to the public because they couldn't ignore it anymore. It was all over the news. There were many newspapers talking about it. So, okay, we have to do something about it.
Hmm.
So, the guy from the right, Brigadier José Vaz da Silva, he was the commander of Sioani. It wasn't something he created. It was created by the Air Force, and he was, how can I say, he was ordered.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah,
he
placed
was
it,
in
putting
it's
charge.
he
Sioani.
was putting he was put in charge of the
Yeah,
the organization.
Sioani was assigned to him. He didn't really show the interest in this subject and decided, oh, hey, this is interesting for me, so I'm gonna do it. No, it was assigned to him.
Hmm.
Yeah, but he was one of those militaries present at the conference in 1954. So he already knew the topic, and he
Hmm.
was the commander of Sioani. Let's go to the next slide, please,
Okay.
Tom. And here we have other. These are the three major figures, characters in Sioani as until now in our research. Maybe we will discover many more. But this guy is Major Gilberto Zani de Mello. He was at the time an Air Force major. On the left, we have a picture of him, little
Hmm.
more young, and on the right, we have him during a Sioani operation. The woman on the left is Maria Sintra. She witnessed and talked to a being, humanoid being, blonde woman, who she was a nurse, I think, right, Eduardo? Can you explain its history, her history?
Uh, yeah, the Maria Sintra case.
Yeah,
That's Maria Sintra, that woman, is one of the most famous and one of the most famous Brazilian cases, and also one of the cases that UFO interested people in Brazil think they regard them as their favorite. Okay,
Hmm.
because she worked in an asylum, and one night she saw this.
a small town called Lins.
Yes, yes, and she saw this strange object in the sky, and she was looking at it, and then it landed in the how can I say, in the atrium. There was an open atrium in the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
It landed there. This blonde woman came out, and she asked for water, but in a way that she couldn't really understand. She held some sort of bottle that she pointed to that and to some sort of water.
Looked like a crystal bottle.
Right.
Yeah, it was a weird object. That's why it called her attention all the time. From the weird object in the sky, from this woman coming out, and then this weird bottle. And she gave this woman water, and then before leaving, she said "embaúra, embaúra." What does it mean? No one knows. There's a theory that there could be. Uh, we know this word embaúra from a very famous Maria Sintra interview, but that's her report. She could have misheard it. She could
Mm-hmm.
have misinterpreted it. There is a researcher here. I think he's an historian, and there seems to be an ancient language that has a similar pronunciation, and there would be a meaning to that. But we're still waiting on the results of his. I think he's writing a paper on it, and
Okay. That's
we're waiting to
very
see where
interesting.
it goes. It would be nice that there is this ancient language being spoken
Yes.
in the 60s,
I find
but
it really interesting that it was a blonde woman entity that landed as well, because in my ignorance, I hadn't heard of what people up here and everywhere call the Nordics or whatever, these blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. They tend to only appear in places where people like that are often seen, and that wouldn't have been the case as much.
Yeah, he saw. He described it that he saw the object was behind some trees or big bushes like that, and he saw that were other individual inside the object. It was a man.
Mhm.
And I may be wrong, but I I think it had white skin and black hair. But this lady was blonde, very skinny, very tall, and talking to her, and she looked to the object, didn't understand what she was saying. She Maria Sintra thought, oh, maybe she wants water because she has a bottle, something which might reminds her of a bottle. So she got inside, put water in the bottle, and gave it back to the lady. So
Very interesting.
in this image here in the right, we have Major Zani de Mello and Maria Sintra. This picture is from the investigation. It was taken during Sioani's investigation in the town in 1969. And one thing that's important to talk about Sioani, it is that it wasn't a secret. Sioani wasn't classified. It was open, and in its organization, it had many contacts. It was affiliated with civilian people from ufology researchers, students or students organizations. The military said the actually Major Gilberto Zani de Mello, because the Brigadier José Vaz da Silva, he was the commander, but the guy in charge to make it happen was Major Gilberto Zani de Mello. He was the executive officer of this
Yes.
operation. And we had two bulletins from Sioani who were leaked in the 2000s, early 2000s. And they were written by Gilberto Zani de Mello. And there we can, in the first bulletin, go for a little further on the slides, Tom. Next. please. Here. Okay. So this is the bulletin number one from Sioani. I think I can see the date. It's April. I think it's April 1969. It's
March.
written March.
March
Okay, so it's
1969. Yes.
it was written by Major Zandimello, and it's the first one. So he started saying what are the goals and what is the methodology of Sioani, how it will operate, how it will work. And he states very clear that he sees that Sioani, if it maintains open contact with students, for example, it could be an incentive to students to get involved with science, with astronomy. So they were in Major Zani de Mello, Sioani could help develop science in the country.
So Sioani also, I'm sorry, just quick interruption. Sioani also had this scientific communication objective. Okay, they would go to schools and make lectures about astronomy or the possibility of life in other planets, which now we call astrobiology. They didn't have that word at the time. And in that list, you can see that Sioani had been active for a very short time, relatively, and they already had contacts in Paris. They were already receiving information from outside the country with the help of foreign agents or Brazilians living in other countries, but eventually foreign agents would come into play. So they are all over the country, mostly in the southwest region, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Minas Gerais, the state where Varginha is located and Campinas are located, Taubaté. Also Guaratinguetá, which is a very important city for the official nights later. There is a very important training center for the Air Force there. University campus there. I studied there with the it's a campus of the São Paulo State University. They're specialized in astronomy. And this list embraces almost the whole country. And they had these agents, let's call them that, spread over the country. And they were not necessarily military, because Sioani was divided. They would divide the country in Sioanis, which were the zones of investigations, and then there were the nuclei of investigations, the Neoanis, and these Neoanis were comprised of very small operational units of 3, maybe 4 people, and they might be military, they might be other public servants, sometimes civilians that are interested, especially if they have some sort of training that might be useful, like engineers or chemists or doctors, and the goal is to share the information through the chain so that every knowledge necessary to understand that case is reached. For example, there is no doctor in my unit. That information will get to a doctor, and he will read my report, and he will say if that person is sane, or if this person might be injured, or if the contact this witness had might have caused some sort of radiation sickness, this kind of thing. So the idea is to share the information and to make sure that every possible angle was entertained. Everything they could have discovered, and they had this, and the military were not obliged to do it. They were not assigned to Sioani. The commanders were assigned to it, but the investigators themselves, they were not. They were volunteers. They would fulfill their duties with the Air Force or with the Army or the Navy. And then they would also volunteer for these investigations. They would have to get a special permit from their COs to be a part of it. And if necessary, the Air Force could ask them to be relieved for 1 or 2 days to conduct an investigation, and then the COs would allow or not. And it was massive, and essentially they didn't want anyone who didn't really like the subject or had no knowledge that would be useful. There has to be a reason for you to be part of this. If you don't like the subject, if you know nothing that would be useful, then you have no business being here.
And yet it
And
seems to be the opposite of what we know as stovepiping now, where one person might work on one aspect, one person works on another, and they have no communication between or anything like that. This
yeah,
is just like, well, we need you for this, so this is a much more effective way to learn, but a much worse way to control the
the information.
information. That's great. Yeah,
Information, yes.
it's very impressive.
And this list on the right, so we have the cities on
Hmm.
the column in the middle, and the state on the right column. So we had here at this is the first bulletin. So in the first bulletin, they were already installed in 10 states in Brazil. The
Mm.
idea was who has the best communication system, the best logistics, the best uh, network to develop this research. Okay, it's the Air Force, and it was as Eduardo said, the persons, they were volunteers, so there were no payment extra to do this work. Um, One interesting thing that I think it's a good example of how Sioani was open, or the intention was to be open in the beginning, is the name of the project is Sioani. It's like we have a U.S. Air Force program researching UFOs called UFOs,
Mm.
because OANI means
Yeah.
unidentified air object. So it has UFOs on its name. And every level of the organization, in the hierarchy, in the structure, the organogram, it's NIOANI, Nuclei of Investigations,
Yeah.
ZOANI, Zone of Investigation. The investigators, the code was IOANI, because investigator OANI. So they were not trying to hide.
There's
There's UFOs in every name of department.
it
Um,
fascinates me that they were so open then, and
yeah,
however, what is it, 60 years later, we're like,
yeah,
are these things real? And
yeah,
and even back then they were like, yeah, this is a thing. They even named it that, and then we'd got like Blue Book that came out after this, and was so negative and trying to hide it, and
yeah.
then
They actually, Blue Book and Sioani were operating together at the same time.
right,
They were both active
but one was trying
for
to
at
hide
least
it, and one was
one.
trying to solve it.
Yeah, for at least a small period of
Were
time.
they was Sioni trying to solve it?
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
can tell me that. That's
Let's get back one slide before
back
time,
one.
please. Yeah. So here,
Okay.
so Forte Cambuci Fort. It was the Sioani's headquarters, right, in São Paulo, in the biggest city in the southern hemisphere. So this place was the where the organization had its headquarters.
Hmm.
Um, it is on, you cross the road, you cross the street, you have the São Paulo Air Base. So
Okay.
the on the other side of the street, you have the a big air base from the Air Force. So and on the other street you have a Air Force hospital. So it's a big, massive complex of the Air Force in the heart of São Paulo city, and this place was the headquarters of Sioani. Go back one slide more because we jumped. Please. Okay, no. Let's go. Four. Okay, here. Here's an example of documents. These people, these guys, are Sioani's investigators. On the left, we have a list and with names, and on the right, we have pictures, the name of the investigator, the town, and its address, his address, where they lived. Sioani operated from 69 to 72. We have only 2 bulletins from Sioani, and both of them are from March and August of 69.
Right.
So a small period of time, from March to August, we had 2 bulletins. And it's basically all we know about Sioani comes from there, from these documents that were leaked, and some of them were released after. But I wonder how big it gets, because it's only 6 months operating. They were already had 62 agents around the country in nuclei, small nuclei in some cities, and these nuclei were installed in. They were assigned for a specific city because of something happened there. So there is a case in a small town called Linz. Okay, let's send a team there, but the team will not just go there, investigate, and come back. They will be there for a while, at least 3 months. We can only suppose this because on the bulletin number 2, we can see that these guys who were in Linz in April, in March, they would still be there in August.
Still there. Yeah, right.
They're still there. But we, as I said before, we had just 2 bulletins from August. The last one from August of 1969. We have 1970, 71, and 72. We have no idea what Sioani have done.
So it started out very public and very open, and then it very quickly went dark.
Yeah, but these documents, they weren't released at the time. We got it later.
Oh, okay. Right.
Okay, we got it later. But it's on the concept of Sioani, on the bulletin number 1. It's written there that it's part of the agenda of Sioani that everything that is released, everything that is research will be released to the public, to a specific media outlets after research, even if they didn't have an answer, even if it's unidentified. Okay, it's part of Sion. We will release it, but it will be done in a careful way and with lots of hierarchy. But in 1972, remember, we were at the time of the peak of the
Cold War,
dictatorship, dictatorship in Brazil, and military dictatorship in Brazil. It's a very curious case, because when we talk about dictatorships, we are used to connect it to a figure of a man, the dictator, that guy, this one guy. In Brazil, we didn't have the dictator, this one guy who controls the power. It was the military. So we have elections. It was a dictatorship. It had elections in the Congress to choose the next military who will be president. So you had factions, different factions inside the military. So with the changing of administration inside the dictatorship, one of the things that supposedly led to the end of Sioani in 72 was the changing of the administration. So the president changed, it changes the president, it started changing all over in the commands of the Air Force and everything. And then some in 72, one of these changes led to one of the reasons to the end of Sioani.
Right.
Another one was that the the amount of work not related to Sioani, the amount of regular work those guys in Sioani were already having to work was too big. They were not uh, they they didn't have time to
Yeah. Yeah.
focus on Sioani. And the other aspect, the other reason that is pointed is that lack of budget. Simply that, because the Brazilian army at the time was their main focus was to develop nuclear energy in Brazil, both for military purposes or for civilian purposes. And Brazil is not the richest country in the world, especially in the 70s. So, okay, let's not spend our budget with UFO research. So it come to an end in 1972.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because everything was going very well. Apparently, system was working. People were uh, they were overloaded with a lot of stuff they had to do, but they could manage that with more investigators. It's not a budget matter because they wouldn't pay them anyway. So they could try to find more investigators. But in 1972, the commander of the Fourth Air Zone, the Air Force command where Sioani was operating, changed, and then there was this new general with different ideas. Gustavo showed a picture of General Vaz, the general, I'm sorry, the brigadier. He would be a general who was assigned to take care of these things. He didn't really go to the field to talk to people and this kind of stuff. He would just be on the bureaucratic part of the work. Okay. Zani was the operational guy. He was like Fox Mulder and Voss was Skinner, something like that.
Yeah.
So and we usually when we had this episode about Sioani, we made a joke once and made this joke some other times that Zani was the Brazilian Fox Mulder because in a way he was out there with a government infrastructure investigating weird stuff that was happening and that many people didn't really believe that the government was interested in those things, just like the X-Files series. And then the command changed, and then there was this other general. I can't remember his name now, but he had a different thought about releasing documents to the public, not only regarding UAPs or UFOs, but a lot of other stuff, including the government stuff of the military, the regime stuff. He didn't want that. So Sioani was shut down and everything else was kept as a secret. Or was it actually shut down? I have this theory that the infrastructure was used to keep investigating but never tell anyone about it. The lectures about astronomy in schools and public places stopped. The interviews to the media, it wasn't common, but sometimes it would happen. It stopped. All the PR part of Sioani was shut down. And this relationship with these people, these investigators, these Ioannis, was also shut down. But there was enough experience to create a dedicated infrastructure with dedicated personnel to investigate these things and keep it secret. Okay, it's hard to keep a secret when so many people are volunteers, who are volunteers, show up to work with you, and they're volunteers because they know things about it and they like it, and obviously they would like to see this thing disclosed.
But it's
So
easy. But it's easy in the other side because we were talking about a military dictatorship. So if the
yes,
military at the time say you will not talk about it, that's it.
Yeah.
People are disappearing every day.
But it seemed like they had a huge influx of cases maybe for the first year or two whilst they've got all these agents, and then
about 100.
like then they've got the time to work on the interesting ones, and they can close the doors a little bit and get a bit sneakier after that maybe. It certainly from how you've described it.
Yeah, Sioani looks like a black swan in the spirit in this era because it's very hard to have something good to say about the military during this era, because they were the military dictatorship. People were disappearing and getting killed and tortured. But when you look at Sioani, especially when I first read the bulletin number one, the part where Major Zani de Mello describes how Sioani will operate and its agenda, you see a very good intentions, at least from that guy. I'm not talking that it was
Yeah.
the Air Force had good intentions, but the guy in charge, Major Zani de Mello, he was open. He understood that the phenomenon was serious, and he understood not only that it could the people deserved to know the truth, but uh, it could help the country. You can see it written on the bulletin. And let's go to the next slide, please, Tom. So here it's an example. On the left we have this is basically a report from a police precinct in a small town. Actually today it's not a small town; it's a big city named Bauru in our state, São Paulo, 1969. This is a report from the police precinct talking about a case where four college students, four girls, they were coming back from their university. They study at night. They were on the highway and they saw on the left these drawings were made by one of the witnesses. They
Right.
saw following her parallel to the car, away in the distance, above the fields, a red object, just like the first one. So the drawing is describing the phases of changing in the structure of the object. So at first, yeah, so it changed. It was the first form there, and then it changed to the second. It looks like a cone, a hat, I don't know, and it gets smaller, and then it gets bigger to that other strange shape. And the final phase of the sighting, it was a rectangle, a black light, a rectangle of light that they
That's
saw.
very interesting. That's very
So
Vandenberg.
yeah. So this document was inside Sioani's vault because Sioani went there to study the case. We didn't found this document. So when you read the document, this is just the first the 2 pages. There are, I think, 6, and then the 3 first pages, it's just bureaucratic talk, but involving Sioani. Okay, I am a sheriff from this city, and I had to talk to Sioani. Okay, you talk to this guy, blah 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 blah. But this is the core of the case. And so this is in 1969. It's a case that Sioani studied. Let's go to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So here, 52 and 58, it's not cases that Sioani studied, uh, because Sioani started in 69. But the first on the left, the Barra da Tijuca case. Barra da Tijuca is a neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. In 1952, we had a very famous sighting there, and this sighting was studied by the Navy, and it's one of the few cases in Brazil that we have some documents from the Navy. So the Navy, actually, you have some documents from the Navy because it happened with naval officers.
Mm-hmm.
The I think it was no, it was Eduardo, was Ilha da Trindade case. It was with the Navy. I don't remember now.
It was with the Merchant Navy, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
There was this team of reporters, and this picture was taken by a very famous photographer at the time. He worked for biggest, one of the biggest magazines in the
Magazines.
country. Picture was published, and it was analyzed, I think, in the Navy laboratories. The Navy had this laboratory of photography, and it was analyzed there, and they concluded it was no double exposure or
Mm-hmm.
some sort of some sort of effect or whatever. Whatever is shown in the picture is really there. This isn't made up. This is the real thing. That doesn't mean the weird shape you see there over the rock is necessarily a UFO or UAP, whatever. It just means
it's
that
not manipulated. Yeah.
whatever this is, it's really there. That's
Mm-hmm.
what those specialists said at the time.
So, but I showed those two cases because one is 52 and the other in 58, because the conference of the Air Force happened in 54.
Mm-hmm.
So one case is to show that okay, it was already happening before, and they were studying. So the Air Force studied this first case from 52, and in 58, after that first conference, more cases were happening like this in 58. So I I I can see the evolution of a protocol.
Mm-hmm.
First, you start studying more in a more deorganized way, and then we have a conference. Okay, now we'll do stuff on this way, and then we have a big wave, and then okay, now we have an agency.
Mm.
Let's go to the next slide. I don't know if this is the last one.
I absolutely love the. I'm just gonna interrupt for a second, but I love these old photographs compared
Yeah, it's
to
very cool.
when you see, I mean, in the news, have you seen that thing that Skywatcher said is like groundbreaking like groundbreaking new shot, and
Yeah,
it's like two white dots, and then
yeah.
you go back, what, 70 years, and there's your craft, and this is pre-Photoshop, this is pre all that digital noise and special effects, and there it is. You want
I
the
want I, I
images,
wanna I
they've
wanna
been
make a
there the whole
picture of
time.
this. I want to put this picture on my wall and look at it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
So
sorry to interrupt, but I just
no,
I
no,
I
no.
love it. I think there's so much. We need an analog revolution, and just to have a look
Yeah.
back at these old pictures,
Yeah.
man. A renaissance.
So here we have the case we told about before, Maria Sintra in 1969. On the left, on the right, Major Zani de Mello with Maria Sintra again, the same picture. And on the left we have her. She is showing the place where the craft landed. So there were some markings on the ground.
Hmm.
On the photo, the picture. Puta, esqueci como é que fala embaixo.
Under.
Yes. In the other picture, we have that that arrow pointing to
Mm-hmm.
the window. So she was on that
Ah.
window, and from there she watched the lady coming. Where is that man?
Oh wow. Right.
So she saw her from that window, and then she went downstairs and opened the door, and there was that woman.
So from that picture, the top one, is that looks like the grass is kind of died and like we
Yeah,
hear about in other cases, like in Rendlesham, for example, that was one where the grass under it had been irradiated and all the bugs were dead and nothing would grow there. It looks kind of similar in this.
yeah. From this case, let's go to the next
Okay,
slide, please. And to the next one. I don't know if this is the last.
that's the last one.
Yeah, okay, okay. No problem. Let's go back to the another one.
Hmm.
From this case, we have only the Sioani documents, and in the documents there are no conclusions.
Hmm.
There are no conclusions. They just gather the data and archive it there, but there are no conclusions. And actually, there is an interview of Major Zani de Mello, and this I think is amazing. I think it's incredible to have the opportunity to listen to it. Imagine if Jesse Marcel gave an interview to a radio one day after the Roswell incident. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's basically it. We had a radio interview with Major Zani de Mello, talking with the radio host about the investigation. There, he's talking about, and he says clearly, "Well, we are here just to collect data. I have no conclusions. I will not give any conclusion. I'm just collecting data." And then there's a moment when the radio host asks, "But what do you think about it? Do you think it is it's extraterrestrials?" He says, "Look, uh, I wish it is extraterrestrials." And he says, "I wish it is extraterrestrials. I think it is will. It's more poetic if it is."
Okay.
But he says that I wish they are extraterrestrials who made this because it's more poetic.
Hmm.
It will lose the fantasy. It will lose the magic of the story if it's not as extraterrestrials. But and I'm trying to paraphrase him. But it doesn't matter what I want. All that matter is the data, and the only thing I know is that it's very strange. So, and after the interview, they say, "Oh, okay. So now after." He said the time at 8 p.m. there will be a conference on the ballroom with Major Zani de Mello, and we will be receiving guests and people were asking questions. So you can imagine that. So
Wow.
the Brazilian Air Force major being received by the mayor to study a UFO landing and a contact, and going on the radio, and after that he will give a free speech, a TED talk about UFOs.
Wow. That's
It's
amazing.
incredible.
It's amazing.
And he says it's more poetic that these are actually aliens. It's more
Hmm.
poetics. Translation, because if these are Soviets, we're screwed.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, things get a lot more complicated if it's somebody from here. Yeah.
but
Wow.
but but we can see that from that interview that he actually, Zani de Mello is not different than us because he enjoyed the matter. He enjoyed to
Hmm.
study the topic. He lets very clear on the bulletin number 1 that despite all the media nonsense, it's very likely, it's very similar to what we have today.
Mm.
He writes that despite the media frenzy, despite the nonsense, the sensationalist newspapers, and despite all of that, there's something happening that deserves proper research, and proper research will be done. And he writes that it deserves proper research, and proper research will be done. So Eduardo is absolutely right. He says that because more poetic, because if they're Russians, we're screwed. But
Yeah.
he, at the same time, he is a guy just like us who
Yeah.
likes this topic, but he is in the position of having how to do something about it. I think he was having a ball at the time.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. What a fascinating man. God, we could do with if only they treated it the same now, you know. Um,
Yeah.
I think Arrow could learn a hell of a lot from Zanny DeMello there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And then what have you got here? Is this the
Yeah, here
organization of the
this yeah, Eduardo, do you wanna explain this slide?
Yeah, on the left hand side, that's an organogram of of Sioani. We have Sioani with the C there, the center of
the center?
everything.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then there was a public relations, the relações part, and a secretary also attached to it. And then under the C Oani, there were the Z Oanis, the regions,
Yeah.
the zones. And they were also, Sioani also would, the central would also command the library registration, cadastro de biblioteca, which means all the documents, the way they were written and filed and kept. Apoio logístico is like logistic support. So if you need to send someone or some equipment to some place for some research, we got these other people to help. The study, investigation, research, pesquisa, and by research they mean actual research in labs. The
Mm.
Leoanis are the laboratories to where they would send uh, uh, samples of some weird materials they found, samples of soil or grass, and some of them were in the U.S. according to
Wow.
the documents. So not just in Brazil.
So they were literally dealing with every aspect of it all under this Sioani. That's fantastic.
They were trying to really do a scientific research with it. They were not academics, but they were trying to be as much.
But they were attached with academics. They had academics
Yes,
inside the organization.
Mm.
yes, and I'm pretty sure they helped to get this structure in place. Like, hey, this is the kind of thing you should send to a lab to be proper analyzed. I can't just look at it and say what it is or what I think it is.
Hmm.
And then in the other picture, there is an
An ID.
identification.
Like an
Yeah,
ID card, yeah.
yeah,
That's
and
cool that
then
he's printed out.
you would put your picture there and write your name, all that
But
stuff.
it's top secret.
Yeah,
Yes.
you walk around
Top
with an
secret.
ID, but it's secret.
I love it. That's awesome. Can you imagine? I mean, we didn't even know how many people work at Arrow or ATIP or ORSAP or NIDS or any of these that came after it. And and this tells you it's got a list of who's in it, and obviously this was declassified afterwards, and we found out after the time. But you know, it literally tells you the organization of the whole department and how and where they're working. Whereas with organizations like Arrow, we have no idea. I think it's just starting to come out now, some of the sinister stuff that they have been doing. But how refreshing to hear that so long ago they were doing it properly and caring about what they were doing, you know?
Yeah, but one thing is important to say is that the transparency was inside Sioani. It was in its agenda,
Mm.
but it wasn't in the Air Force agenda after it finished. So
Right.
those documents, those especially those bulletins, they weren't released. They were leaked. Major Zani de Mello leaked it to Brazilian ufologists.
Oh, wow.
So these documents here, they were leaked by the head of the investigation to Brazilian ufologists, and they Ademar Gevaer, the most famous Brazilian ufologist, he died a few years ago. He he first tried. He went to the Air Force and said, "Listen, I got this. It's okay for me to publish. You are all right." And then they said they allowed him to distribute it to other researchers, but not to the public.
Hmm.
But you can say that to a guy who owns a magazine about UFOs. Because Ademar Gevaer had the UFO magazine in Brazil, the biggest, the most famous, one of, I think it's the oldest in activity in the world.
Yes.
So he eventually published those documents on the magazine. And after that, I think it's 2013, when the Brazilian Air Force had a gathering with Brazilian ufologists, and they opened some documents and showed them something more, and then they started to releasing something. So the bulk of what we know about Sioani comes from a leak, but there are also other documents that were released after.
Hmm. So how did they get to where they are now in that every year they're releasing or declassifying multiple documents as opposed it seems like we kind of went, oh, we're public, no we're not, we're public, no we're not.
Yeah, I think they their mentality is that, okay, we are publishing civilian reports from airliners pilots, and we are doing our part. That's it. Don't ask for nothing more than that.
Hmm.
If you they're not showing anything old from the old times, but at least they are following the law. There is a law obliging the Air Force to catalog and publish every year those sightings from especially from airliners, not from the military.
Hmm.
So they are publishing. They are publishing it, but it's all we got. It's the description of what the pilot saw on that event.
So do you think there could be a system where they're saying, yeah, well, we'll publish everything that we get, but you better not report anything. Like so, that kind of thing where they don't actually, they're still discouraging the pilots from saying anything, but then they're promising that they'll discourage that they'll publish every report that they receive, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, Eduardo, wanna answer it?
I think there's
It's like for
uh
example, with at the moment with Arrow, they're saying, "Yep,
mhm,
you can. Here's a whistleblower hotline. Call us and tell us everything." But then there are commercial pilots that are saying, "If I talk about this, they are going to fail my medical, and I can't fly anymore." So it's like they pretend to be transparent, but actually,
they're
the
not.
the the witnesses can't talk.
I don't think there is this kind of attitude of the Air Force nowadays. Maybe in the past there was, but not so clearly, at least. Some companies still do. I remember years ago I spoke to this airline pilot. He had at the time over 15 years in experience. He was flying for a major Brazilian airline, and he it was in a UFO event. He in private with it was himself, his wife, me, and another friend from this UFO like a UFO group I was part of. He told us his sightings. He had two sightings. One very simple, just a strange light, and then another one that he saw an object coming close to his aircraft and doing maneuvers, and he got kind of scared, and he reported the air traffic control, the military air traffic control. Remember that,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he when he landed, he went to talk to his manager in the airline because coincidentally it was in São Paulo where the airline headquarters was. And his manager said, "Okay, keep it to yourself. When you retire, you write a book, and then you can say whatever you want in the airline." So we don't know exactly where this repression is coming from. I'm pretty sure that the Air Force has this way of that has this way to seem transparent, that hey, these are the reports we had, but we can't really know that these are all the reports they had. Maybe
Mm.
there's something much more interesting there happening that we don't know, and we don't even know if the witnesses, those pilots, they are safe, they feel safe enough to tell, hey, I saw something, I reported it, and they didn't release it. We can't
Yeah.
know. Even because sometimes they release things from years ago, from before that law was active. So we just don't know that. Even for Sioani, they when their first bulletin was written, it included cases, some cases before the Sioani's activation.
Ha. Right.
So they were already gathering information, even though there was no structure for that. And then, counting on the two bulletins, they had about 100 cases in a time span of a few months, which is impressive given the short infrastructure they had.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a recurring joke in our show that I say that this looks like onions because of that scene from Shrek where they say that hey, these are like onions because it's got layers. This thing also has a lot of layers because there's the airline, and then there's the military, and then there is the military document, and then there is the law that allows you to access that military document, but then there is someone in the military that will tell you, hey, this law cannot be applied to this document because it's national security stuff. So I can't give it to you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers in that. You can't
Yeah.
just believe that, hey, there's a law here, we're protected, and truth will come out. Whatever they have will come out. No, it's not that simple.
Yeah, and they have a very good excuse just to saying, okay, it was a military dictatorship. Many things were destroyed when the
Mm.
dictatorship ended, and it's a very common answer when they people try to FOIA the Air Force, the Brazilian Air Force. Oh, this document is destroyed; it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
One. Say, Tom, you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I personally, without any evidence, I think that we put so much trust in FOIA these days that it's a joke. It's like asking a murderer to tell you if he killed somebody. Is he just they just, oh, we'd like you to, what about this magic word? And they go, no. What about this magic
Yeah,
word? No. And you're trusting that person to go, oh, you've got me. Oh, okay. Here's everything, you know. No, it's
yeah,
never gonna happen. It hasn't happened yet. It's not gonna happen again. So why do we even try, you know? But
yeah. Just to to finish this story about Sioane. Of course, there are many things, much more details about it,
mhm.
and I think it will become book. Um, I said that Coronel João Adil, the first guy from the
Hmm.
1954 conference, he was connected to the paranormal research,
Mm.
parapsychology. Zani de Mello, uh, at least after Sioani was connected to parapsychology research,
That's
at
so
least after,
interesting.
and in 2013, as I said, when the ufologists and the Air Force talked and they started release something, they said, okay, do you want documents about Sioani and those stuff? Let's organize it and we'll give it to you. So they assigned another colonel of the Air Force. I don't remember his name now, but he's alive. He lives in southern Brazil, and sorry, and this guy was assigned to find those documents and give it and show it to the ufologists. And this guy also, at least today, he is involved in paranormal research.
Hmm. When you consider that on the global scale, because I only know this because I've just done a series on like parapsychology in the military and stuff, and you'd got SRI wasn't founded until I think it was a 74 or 72, and prior to that you'd got Stubblebine and Puharich, but they it was just panic because they found out that Russia was working on this stuff, and they were like, "Oh my God, get me some gypsies and some tarot readers, and like we need to catch up really fast." But then the fact that in Brazil these guys were already presumably had an interest in this in the military, it really shows how far behind America was.
Yeah, you'll find many um, Brazilian military who were involved in paranormal research. We haven't talked about the most famous one. It was a general. Oh my God, his
Ushua.
name. Yeah, General Shoa. He was a Brazilian army general during the Brazilian military dictatorship, and but he was deeply, deeply, deeply involved in theosophy, Maria Blavatsky studies since the 30s. Since the
Wow.
30s.
The 30s. Good Lord.
Yeah, a general, army general from Brazil. And he had an amazing story. He wrote, I think, 2 or 3 books about it. Very, very interesting, where he narrates his experience, and it was mass sightings
Mm.
because he wasn't alone and there were other officials with him. But yeah, Brazil has a, a strong connection with the paranormal. It's so strong that people don't realize it. It's I don't know if there's any other country in the world where you know for sure that if you go to that house every Tuesday at 8 p.m., that will be a session where you will have a letter from a spirit.
That sounds like
It
my
was
mum's
the
house in Spain.
yeah, it was a it is a the Brazilian version of the Spiritism, which was created by Allan Kardec in the 19th century and came to Brazil, where you already have a very strong African religion culture with their entities and the possessions and everything else.
Yeah.
So the notion of the paranormal is it's not that strange in Brazil because everybody, you could be the most skeptic person. You have an aunt or an uncle who goes to uh, uh, a center of those kind of activities and
Mhm.
knows something about it. It's so common. It's so common that people don't realize
Sounds like a
Yeah,
good book three.
uh,
it.
yes. Don't give him ideas. He's got plenty already. Ushuaia was also, this whole talk about psionics that we've been having for the past few months. You could say he was in that stuff too, because he was conducting these experiments in a farm,
I think
and
we should call expeditions.
yeah,
Mhm.
they had he was part of this group of people who would conduct. They thought it was spiritual experiments, but then it got related with UFO stuff, and they ended up summoning UFOs in some occasions,
Was this Mission
which is
Rama or a different
no,
type
no,
of?
no. That's a different
Okay.
thing. It's a different South American thing.
Hmm.
And he had, if you want to know more about it, Google Fazenda Alexandria. That's the place where it happened, and it was in the '60s. So they were summoning UFOs in the '60s, and then today we have this talk about psionics doing it in more recent times
Mm.
in the U.S.
And we
But
want to
that's
see
not
another.
exactly new for us.
Yeah,
No,
we
and
want to
you've
see
got
another
the
crazy connection. We want to see hear another crazy
always.
connection. Yeah, General Showa, this in the 60s, his son at the time was in the Air Force also. I think he was a major or a Captain Paulo Uchoa. Um, he's alive today and very, I think it's almost 80, 85 years old. And he went to become a general, I think. But do you know where do you find his name on the first chapter of Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent?
Oh, right.
When
Yes.
he says that he went to a dinner with Bigelow and many other people, Jacques Vallée and everybody, and there was a Brazilian general who showed him uh, pictures and information about Colares. This guy was General Paulo Uchoa, the son, at least Elizondo says it was him. But this guy was General Paulo Uchoa, son of General Uchoa from the 60s, who were in the 60s, were
Wow.
said he was summoning UFOs in the
Can you
capital of
imagine if
Brazil.
that's the same one that Lacatsky talks about as well? I know that's a massive leap of faith, but
I don't remember what he called what he said.
he didn't say a name. He just said like a good question is why was there a Brazilian general there as well?
Yeah,
But
it's probably him, probably.
because it was Lacatsky, Elizondo, it's that right
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
time period.
it's probably him, probably him.
Wow.
Because Elizondo says in his book that at this dinner it was Bigelow, Valet, I think Hal Puthoff, Eric. I don't remember who, but
Yeah, so that's
a
NIDS.
lot of
That
guys.
that's the
Yeah,
organization NIDS then.
yeah, that's needs. I think it was in Las Vegas that dinner,
Yep.
and there was a Brazilian general, and this Brazilian general was Paulo Shoa, son of the other general, who
Wow.
was summoning UFOs in the 60s.
Well, talk about a bombshell way to end. That's it doesn't get much bigger than that. That's amazing. Man, thank you so much. Guys, you do
Thank
it
you.
every time. That's a lot to take in, but that's brilliant. What I'll do is I'll put the presentation I'll put a link to it so that people can have a look and go through it as well. And
Okay.
and they can find out more on your amazing podcast. So I'll recommend that people come check you out and I can't wait to get you back on again because this is like going to university for me. I love it.
It's very nice to hear new stories, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've learned so much tonight, I love to be very fluid with my opinions and not just kind of go, oh, this is all the evidence that supports that, so all that's all I'm going to focus on. And yeah, I've never heard of Nordics in South America or anything from this Sioani
Yeah,
side.
you heard also about sky watchers in Brazil in the 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brazilian
Well,
sky watcher.
I've got a bit more faith in the Brazilian one than the American one, but that's another story. But guys, honestly, it's been an absolute a treat and an honor, and it's always nice to catch up with good friends. So thank you so much.
We
Th
appreciate Tom. Thank you very much.